Hi everyone, this is Kyle with kayDbait. I wanted to do a video on something that's happening right now, which is President Obama has tried to nominate somebody for the Supreme Court position, and I saw an immediate response pretty much that said that Congress is not going to they're not going to do it. They're not going to let him do it. And depending on how they are doing that, because I've seen a couple of different things like we're never going to do it for you until after a new president is in, and then they appoint somebody, so no one you appoint will be accepted, which is kind of not within the realm of what they're supposed to do. But there was also a thing where saying they're not even going to acknowledge that he nominated somebody, which goes against what their job actually is. So depending on the two ways that they're going to do it, they can just say, because they're allowed to reject it. They put it to there's a process that they're supposed to do. He nominates, then it gets sent to them, and they pretty much scrutinize it, and then they say, okay, if he's good or not, and then he goes to another process, and then another thing, and then he gets appointed by the president. But if they say we're not going to do that at all, we're not even going to let you nominate somebody, that is actually them not doing their job. So they can do their job and just reject it, which has its pros and cons, and then they can just say, no, we're not going to do it entirely, which is something else. And that difference is actually important, as far as I can tell, towards how the government is being run. Because I know everyone in school learned about the checks and balances within the United States. The president nominates the Supreme Court rulers, but the Congress has to, do the votes and stuff like that. And then also, they make the laws, and then the judicial branch interprets those laws, whether they be constitutional or not. The president's also in charge of the military, but it requires Congress pretty much to declare war on somebody. So there's a lot of different ways that they can, and then you have the veto system, and you have impeachment, and you have just a whole bunch of stuff like that. So you have different ways of balancing each other. But when those start to break down because people believe that they're allowed to disregard the rules, you can change the rules. That's completely normal. I mean, we've had many amendments to the Constitution. We've had the judicial review deem certain things unconstitutional, and then it had to get changed. The laws were changed, and we have a system that we pretty much overthrow our rulers every 4 to 8 years. And you can argue for or against, all of that, but we have a system that is malleable. You can change it. And when you change it within the system itself, you don't go outside of the system and start forcing it to change unnaturally. Now, I don't necessarily believe that everything should be within a system, because that system could be wrong. It could be corrupted, or it can be nonsensical or overly complicated to the point of, people not being able to understand it. The common person needing a degree in advanced, pretty much constitutional law making stuff just to understand what the heck is going on. It's like nobody really reads, except for maybe the people that are voting on the laws. Nobody really reads the full laws. I've tried to do it. 700 pages of, like, I think it was 700. Was it 500 or 700? It's been a while. I tried reading the Obamacare bill, and it was so complicated. It was so wordy, and it used a lot of lawyer speak, and I didn't understand a lot of it. I tried to. I got as much of it as I could to learn about it, but the average person is not going to do that. And I don't think I also don't believe that they take that amount of consideration when dealing with the laws within how the federal government works either. So you have these systems in place for electing the Supreme Court nominee, pretty much. And you have people within Congress and within the government saying, we're not going to do that. And then you have people arguing on both sides, well, you can't do this, and you have to do that, and you can't do this. And they're just yelling at each other, and they're not actually aware. It's like, I am not aware of how the process works. But I do know that there is a difference between not having a hearing at all which denies the president's nominations entirely, and then there's also them just voting no. So there's a difference between those because one is within the law and one is disregarding the rules. So I don't believe that it's the right thing to do to disregard entirely because that goes against, it's pretty much questioning the powers of the president, not what the president is using the powers for. So you're pretty much saying, I don't want you to have this power because it sets a precedent. If they make that a rule that we are allowed to just disregard things the president does, that has to be addressed because everyone involved, everyone who is doing this is like, because not everyone's on board with that. A lot of people within Congress want him to elect somebody, but there's a lot of opposition right now. So you can't just go off of popularity and who the majority is like this, because this is involving the way the system is run, and within the system you still need to follow the rules unless you're going to have some kind of when you break the Constitution, when you break the rules, it's different than if you use the rules. And I'm not saying whether that's good or not. I'm saying that it has to be addressed in that fashion. So I was talking to one of my friends, and this is what brought it up, is I was telling them about how Venezuela has been doing something very similar to this recently, where the president, he's not very popular in Venezuela right now, and the Congress there was a major election. Everyone in Congress got reelected pretty much. Not the same people, but they had an election where all of Congress there was pretty much shifted over, and it became a very anti-president group. It was a very, very big majority of people did not like the president that was in Congress. And what they did is they flat out said, they're running on the platform pretty much that we are going to get rid of the president, not kill him, but they were going to pretty much change. They actually had it. They're just like one or two people short of a supermajority that allows them to just flat out change their constitution. Just say, we want to rewrite the entire thing and we have enough people to do it. They're like 2 or 3 people short, but they actually made the number. And the president said that 3 of them had committed voter fraud. So they're under investigation. Now, within the law, you're allowed to do that. He's like, I believe that you are breaking the law, so therefore there has to be an investigation, and that's fine. But there's been it's getting more and more kind of ridiculous that the Supreme Court, which people are arguing was pretty much everyone there in the Supreme Court there supports the president because he gave them their jobs. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're corrupt. What I do find to be an issue is Congress is required there to declare a state of emergency. It's one of their powers. But the president asked them to do it, give me emergency power because they're in crisis right now, and they said no. So the Supreme Court changed the law pretty much and said the president is now with this power. He has the state of emergency he wanted, even though Congress said no. So they changed the law without going through the law. Congress said no. The president and the judicial branch said yes. But they're not allowed to do that. That's not in their law. So they went outside of that. And I don't believe that that's good. I believe that that in itself is a very dangerous precedent to set. That if you had the power to elect these people pretty much. Like the president had the power to just put those people into office. And now that they're in office, they can take power away from Congress and give it to him, which is a major break in the balance of power. There's no way that Congress, which are elected officials by the people, the president is as well, but when he's not popular right now, so the people are pretty much saying we don't want him. Like not everybody, but there's a lot of people saying we don't want him to have these powers. We don't want him to have these things. And the people who elected the congressman pretty much said the same thing. We don't want the president to have the powers. Get rid of him. And the president and the Supreme Court that the president put into power said, I want to have these powers. And it goes against what the idea of elected officials and elected government and the purpose of government entirely. It's you want to represent the people in a way that benefits the people. Like if you don't want to represent the majority if the majority wants to destroy the minorities, you don't do that. But that's not the case in this one. The government was horrifyingly corrupt. It still is. Everyone in the world knows that. And it is common knowledge that they are very corrupt. And the government didn't fix the problems, and now the people are suffering for it. And so the people wanted change. And the change happened, but now the president and his Supreme Court are forcing them to continue on, even though the change is supposed to happen. They're not letting it. In the United States, that on a smaller scale is happening right now, where if they give Congress the power to just ignore certain things that the president does, in regard to the judicial branch, because it's the executive branch trying to do something to the judicial branch, and I just had the head. It's executive, judicial, and I was talking to my friend about it, and I can't remember what the word is, but executive, judicial, and I'm just going to call them Congress. I don't know why I can't remember the word. I'll put it. You know what it is, but this is going to bother me until I remember what it is. And Congress is pretty much saying, no, you're not allowed to do this. So you have one branch telling another branch they're not allowed to use their power over the third branch that they're supposed to. And that, I'm going to have it pop up on the screen. I'm going to put it on the screen somewhere just so you guys know what it is, so I feel even stupider, but or I look even stupider. But though it's more complicated than that. The whole process is very complicated, but this situation should not be based off of bullying or about disregarding the rules. It should be about, you can fight things within the rules, things like filibustering or vetoing or impeachment. Those things are within the law. But if you were to disregard those or to argue that they're wrong and then go around them, that's not the same thing as using those. You can just tell people, hey, we need to fix this system. So in our time, we can make it better by changing the laws and working with each other. That's not what they're saying they're going to do potentially. And again, it's way too soon to say what they're going to do or why they're saying what they're going to do. And the intricacies of it are immense already. And everyone's going to be making sweeping generalizations about this, yelling, whatever. But I'm trying to be objective, and it's hard because there's not a lot of information on this right now. But legislative. That's it. Legislative branch, I think. I'm going to hate myself if I'm wrong. But when I'm throwing myself all over the place right now, you have to go within the rules, because if you don't, you set a precedent that you're allowed to go outside of them. And it's dangerous, because that's very similar to what Venezuela is doing, and it leads to major corruption. And it goes against what the people want. If the people are electing Congress, they're electing the president or whatever, and you start changing the way their powers work. It's like, I didn't want him to have that power. I voted him in to do this job, not that job. And it doesn't protect everything from corruption. Obviously, there's already messed up stuff within the system. But you can't give somebody the power that they don't have, because it's not how our system is supposed to work. Now, I think it's about bullying at this point, because if you have a group of people that are saying, we don't want to follow the rules and we're going to force these new rules upon everyone around us, and there's nothing you can do about it, and they fight tooth and nail to prevent people from stopping them, then you've gotten to the point where it's not government anymore. It's a group of people that are trying to do their own thing within the government, but they're doing it without following the government. They're just kind of sifting through all the walls of government to do whatever the heck they want without follow. It's like no clipping in a video game. They're not staying inside their place. They're going outside of their power, and they're just pretty much riling people up, getting popular opinions so that people, you get impeached for that kind of stuff. But if you have the popular vote, or if you have enough people supporting you, you can just brush that off. Or if you have enough power to do that, you can brush off stuff like that. And that's not good. And right now, I think that's what's going to happen, is we have somebody that is incredibly powerful and incredibly popular right now, and hated, but and he's supporting that they wait. But the way they handle that is very important. It's not a simple thing. You can't just say hold on. You have to support the way the system works right now, because that's the rules of the system. And I am very argumentative when it comes to natural authority. I don't have this natural respect for authority that a lot of people do. That's why I would be terrible in the military. I would question every order I got. But depending on how they handle this, if they treat it as we're allowed to do this because we're allowed to do this, that's not good. And I believe that that's the stance that is going to be taken. If they just don't hold anything and they just say the president cannot nominate these people right now because he's almost out, that's making new rules. That's changing the rules. Now, they don't have to do that. They can just vote no. And it goes within the system, same outcome. Why don't they do that? I don't know. Again, there's not enough information. They might do it they might just vote somebody in real quick. I don't know. But it just seems so strange to I mean, he's already nominated somebody, and apparently they're a moderate. They're not super Democrat, they're not super Republican, they're in the middle. And apparently they were very popular. So I don't know why they would fight that. Having moderates within the judicial branch is probably one of the best things you can do, because they're supposed to be objective. They're not supposed to be bipartisan at all. So they're supposed to review to make sure it's constitutional. And the Constitution is not Republican or Democrat. That's way before that stuff. So, in essence, they're trying to block somebody right now, potentially block somebody that is, they're not for or against anybody. They're supposedly very good at their job. They're supposedly very respected. I don't know who the heck it is. I mean, I saw the nomination thing. I don't know anything about it. But if Congress, if the legislative branch just starts making up powers like the Venezuelan government did, which is really bad, it's not as bad for what we're doing. It can be a bad precedent to set, though. Because if the president starts doing things that aren't in his power, or if the judicial branch started doing things that aren't in their power, it should not just be accepted. It should not be something that is just, oh, they have that power now. That's not how it works. If it's something that is beneficial, it can be added. If it's something that's bad, it can be removed. Our system is malleable. It's not set in stone. Technically, we can change our Constitution. That's where the amendments come from. We can literally, today, have a vote in Congress. I mean, maybe not today. They might have to set it up. But they can have a vote and remove the Constitution. Almost, they can change it. They can do whatever. They can add amendments, remove amendments. They can change everything about it. And that's a good thing. It means that we can evolve. And I don't see that being what they're doing. They're not taking the right road, potentially. I think that they're going to, and I actually think that they're going to fight this. At least a group of them is going to fight for an unconstitutional solution to this, in their eyes, a solution, which is to just flat out block it entirely. which I don't think is good. And I know there's going to be people that are going to be supporting this. Because, yeah, we don't want Obama to have another Democrat in the, but that's politically motivated, but not following the political discourse, not following the rules of the politics. They just, I want it to be this way, therefore I'm going to reject any form that goes against that, even if it's within the rules that I earlier supported when it was on my side. So when you have a rule, you have to follow it even when it's not personally benefiting you. If you supported it before when it benefited you, but you reject it when it's not benefiting you, you're not supporting the rule. You're supporting it benefiting you. And obviously there is a lot of gray area in that when it's, maybe it is constitutional, but maybe it's not constitutional. We have to talk about it. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be talking about it. I'm saying we need to be talking about it with this level of critique, not just I want it or I don't want it. That's not how you talk. That's how you argue. That's how you, and argue in a negative way. This is how you vomit onto people. It's like, I don't like what you're saying, therefore you're wrong. And that's not how you do that. And I'm getting a little off topic. So look it up. Just look up how it works. Just look up what the law is. It's very easy to look up. I mean, it is a little bit of hard to follow because I forgot the names of it, and I'm terrible with names. But just ask if you're in school. Ask your political teacher about it, but ask them to answer the question in a way that is factual and not opinionated. Because that online, that's what you're going to get is opinion. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. Everything's about opinion, personal attacks, fallacies. That's what it is. And I feel that's one of the main reasons this is happening now, is because there's so much. There's chaos. There's discord. There's just a breakdown of how the system has always worked. So, and we're not that old. We're only a couple hundred years old, but we've gotten to the point. We're reaching a critical mass of, if I say it, I can make it. And that's fine if you go within the rules. But these are people that are just, I'm going to break the rules and still get what I want. And, no one else matters. Nothing else matters as long as I get what I want. And that's not good. So we really need to be careful about this. We really need to be much more considerate about how we're having this discussion, because the media is going to pick up on this random ranting, screaming, vomiting at each other, and they're just going to run with it because popularity, and it breaks down the conversation. And I really, really don't like it when that happens. It muddles the facts. It makes it so nobody knows what the outcome is going to be. You don't know if the outcome is really good or really bad until after it's already happened, and then there's no way to fix it. There's no way to compensate for it. And you have to be very careful. And we're not being careful at all. We're throwing things at the wall and just seeing what sticks. And the wall is just covered by hundreds of millions of people just throwing things at the wall and just seeing what sticks. And that's it. And we need to fix it. We need to not let that happen. And so I'm making a statement, is don't do that right now. When you have a conversation with somebody about this topic, do not let your emotions and bias fuel everything. Like, it can't be your argument. You can have it as a motivator. Like, I feel passionate about this, therefore I'm going to do research on it. But people don't do that. I feel emotional about this, therefore I'm going to scream at everybody. So, and that's for everything. Every one of my videos can have that in it. Is just stop being biased. It's ruining everything. Everything is being ruined because of these biases being forced into places that they need to be objective. They need to be critiqued. They need to be well thought out and articulate and understood, and they're not. None of it. It's getting so bad you cannot have a civil discussion with somebody. Politics and religion are two of the hardest conversations to have with somebody, because somebody's going to have an argument about it because it's opinion based. And you're allowed to have opinions. Nothing wrong with having an opinion, but you cannot use it in that way. You cannot use it to hurt somebody. You cannot use it to attack some aspect of somebody in a personal way. It's like, oh, you're this religion, therefore you're X, Y, and Z, or hey, oh, you're a Republican, you must just be an idiot. Stuff like that. You can't do that. You can dislike the Republican Party. You can dislike the Democrats. You can dislike anybody, but you cannot use that feeling to attack them. It's not right. And we do it all the time. We do it every day. Everyone does. And when I use the term everyone, I mean that a vast, vast majority. And I don't think I should say everyone, but it requires a number that I cannot just say. If I say a lot of people, everyone has that oomph, and I know it's not correct, but so I'll say there is so many people right now, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. There are so many people that have no idea what they're doing, and they are ruining everything. And it's everyone's fault. You can do everything right and fail. Okay, you still tried. But you can do everything in your power to ruin everything, and it's not that hard to succeed at that. Because one person with a monkey wrench right in there, 100 million people with monkey wrenches, all just throwing them. That's what's happening. And the media runs with it, collects them all, condenses it, throws it back into the pile. And the world is more complicated than just throwing things. You can't do that. So that's it. I'm gonna end the video. I hope it was educational. I hope it was entertaining. I hope you learned something, even if I wasn't clear about it and I forgot the legislative branch. But I'll put the little thing somewhere on the screen. And I hope to see you in the next video, and peace.